there's large exposures of rock that's sitting in place where it originally formed rather than looking at loose boulders. But we're going to keep our eyes open when all these images coming back as we drive. And if we, in fact, drive past something that's amazing, we might actually turn around and go back and check it out. But there's nothing that we see from orbit that's like some super compelling clue to life or something like that. What we have is a real desire to get to Mount Sharp, because there we see variations in the mineralogy from the base of Mount Sharp going up in higher levels in the mountain, where we should see a record of a change of environment based on what we see from orbit. So I think the biggest draw for us right now is Mount Sharp, and then the things that we got to see on our way over to Glenelg, which is the Point Lake and Shaler.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is from Irish Television and Leo Enright.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks to everyone for doing this. If I may, two questions, one for Joy and one for Jim. Joy, I'm going to be jumped on by a lot of people who just want to drive. But can you explain why you're not going to the crater terrain, which it seems like this is your only opportunity to look at this very particular landform? So I'm just wondering why you're not going there, and what you now know about it that makes you think it's not worth visiting.
Well, we will get a look at it again when we go back to Shaler. It's kind of right in the scene there, right above and beyond the cross-bedded rocks. It's always possible that based on what we see there, we may change our minds and say we want to do a quick stop in that unit, because we'll be close to it at that point. But it's one of the classic struggles that the Rover science team has to wrestle with, which is trades, and the trade between, do we want to make more progress on getting to Mount Sharp? How compelling are these things that we haven't gotten to versus making progress to Mount Sharp? And the team has decided that it really is a good time now to turn around and start making progress to Mount Sharp.
Okay, and Jane, if I may, a quick question for Jim, maybe not so quick. Tom Duxbury gave a very nice presentation to the Mars Express meeting this week, where he described, among other things, a Phobos transit of Gale Crater later this summer, which looks, quite extraordinary. It looks like it's going to be a really interesting event visually. So I wondered, and again, I'm going to get jumped on for suggesting, don't drive, do something else. But is there any planning going into looking at this Phobos transit? And would you expect products that would be better, more exciting, if I may use that phrase, than we've seen before from Spirit and Opportunity?
So we've done these kind of observations of transits before on MER and on MSL. I haven't heard of this one yet, but I bet you that Tom Duxbury has been in contact with the key people on our team. That would be Mark Lemon, Jim Bell, that have planned these things before. And it doesn't take much time for us to do these, so it's not too much of an overhead. We can point in the right direction and look and take what like movies, or just take, probably not movies, but take several frames that show you the transit. So yeah, we usually do this because it's not too much cost to the mission.
It's another example of we're going to do the right thing, not just blindly drive to the base of Mount Sharp.
But I just wondered if it was in active planning or not, Jim, no?
I personally haven't heard about it.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, and we do have several people waiting to ask questions. That we're good with time, so we should be able to get to all of you. And I think there are one or two people who wanted to ask follow-up questions. So once everyone's had a first chance to ask a question, we'll get back to you as well. So let's go right now to Craig Covalt of Space Ref. Craig?
Yeah, hi, thanks. And one for Joy and one for Jim. Joy, this is kind of a follow-up to Leo's question. Knowing that there are always differences of opinions in science teams, was there any significant pushback against stopping often, or are everybody 100% signed up? I guess everybody is signed up, but was there any pushback for doing these stops en route to Sharp?
I think it's funny. It's a psychological phenomenon, and what's happened is we've spent so much time in the Glenelg region. I think most people are getting a little antsy and actually do want to drive. It's like being on a vacation and you've spent a lot of time in a little area and you've really done a lot there, and you want to change a pace. And also the beacon of Mount Sharp being so enticing is something that's drawing the team to want to start making good progress.
Okay, a little further on that. Was there any pushback about not even going faster to Mount Sharp? And for Jim, is engineering looking at any issue whatsoever on the hardware?
So for going faster, I haven't heard anything along those lines. I think we're going to make as good a progress as we can, but then, when we want to stop because we see something interesting, then the plan is to do that. So, yeah.
And as far as, I'm assuming you're meaning issues with the hardware for the drive, there's nothing right now with either the mobility system or anything to do with the drill that we have any concerns with. Overall, the hardware for the whole vehicle is in pretty good shape. We've figured out what was going on, the Sol 200 anomaly, put mitigations in place. We don't expect to see that kind of a problem again. And if we do, we're going to be able to ride right through it. That's about it.
Okay. The next question comes from Raphael Jaffe at Aerotech News and Review.
Yes, this is for Jim. How was the thermal behavior during conjunction, which I guess I think is like solar winter, and there were extensive measures taken to keep the equipment warm enough and so forth, but I don't recall seeing anything about how the thermal engineering worked. And the other question is, are there going to be similar periods during the investigation when you don't have enough power to drive and do investigations on the chemical labs and report back to Earth on what's happening? Okay, I'm sorry. That's a long-winded question.
Okay, I'll try and be brief on this. When we're in conjunction, we're sort of unrelated to whether it's the summer or winter season. So there's no special precautions having to do with the thermal situation. It's the same as the normal diurnal variations that you see the month before and the month after. When we do get to the actual Martian winter, this is a RTG-powered rover. It's not a solar-powered rover, so the power really doesn't vary from summer to winter.
Okay. In other words, there is not any there's not chances that you're going to have to downgrade your investigation and driving because of your RTG power. Is that correct?
It's not very likely. We'll be doing a little bit more heating during the winter, but that's not a significant issue.
Okay, and the conjunction was actually an interference with the radio signals from Curiosity back to home base. Is that right?
Actually, during the conjunction, we do have interference from the sun, and that's why we actually have to take special precautions. We've got several ways that we get the data back. We get some data direct to Earth that really sees a hit when you get close to the solar conjunction. We get data through the orbiters, which tend to be able to do better than we do in terms of how close to the sun that we can actually get data through them back. And then finally, we have the ultimate, we send a beep every day that says we're either okay or not okay, and that actually went through the complete conjunction without having any issues with it. So we always had knowledge that the vehicle was healthy.
Thank you.
Okay, and we are going to take our next question from Amanda Wills at Mashable.
Hi, team. Joy, you kind of touched on this earlier, but can you tell us a little more about Mount Sharp? What makes it so special, and what will Curiosity be looking for specifically, if anything? What are you guys most excited about?
So it's like looking at kind of the layers in Grand Canyon. It's preserving a record of how things were in the past and how they changed as you go from the older rocks at the bottom to younger rocks at the top. And from orbit, we see changes in the kinds of minerals that are present from the bottom to the top. So like the kind of interpretation that we were able to do in the Glenelg region, we hope to do on different materials of a different age on Mount Sharp and see how things change. So trying to read the record in the rocks to figure out what the environment was like when those rocks were forming, learning new things about Mars.
Okay, thank you. And we have a couple more first-time questions, and then we'll go back to a few follow-ups. So we're going to go next to Emily Lakdawala of the Planetary Society.
Hi. First question is for Joy. The other one for Jim. Joy, I'm wondering if any of your notional traverses will take you past any of those fluvial conglomerates that were just published about in Science last week, if there's any need to examine those kinds of rocks up close, or if you've done what you've needed to do with the remote sensing stuff. And for Jim, I'm wondering if I'm curious about what your requests are to the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter high-rise team about imaging. How frequently do you expect to get images of the rover, or do you need them? And what's the color coverage so far of the traverse region?
So I think it's likely that we will examine some conglomerates again as we backtrack. But the science team hasn't come up with their plan yet, so we don't actually know what's in the cards yet. But just the fact that we found them as on our way over, it's highly likely we'll be trekking through similar materials on our way back, and we can look at them some more.
As far as the color coverage of the area that we're in, MRO has pretty much blanketed the region, and we actually need no further coverage for quite a while. If we really start driving for hundreds of kilometers, we might ask for some more, but I don't think that's very likely right now. Part two, we really don't have to have images of the vehicle from MRO ever. It's interesting to have them when we get to a new location. We may want to do it just simply to confirm our locations, that we really understand where we are. It's just one of the things we do as a backup to our own navigation.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. And we're going now to Ken Kramer of Universe Today. Hi, Ken.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I have a question about the drilling. I wonder if you will be doing any more drilling at any of these three spots. And what is the plan for drilling beyond on the way to Mount Sharp, if any? And if you're not going to be drilling, why not? Thank you.
Okay, so it's highly unlikely that we would drill at Point Lake or Shaler because we have really talked about what we want to do there and that we want to get driving soon. So that I can state with confidence. So we move further out into the future, it's unclear. I think that it would be very reasonable that we might stop and drill on the way to Mount Sharp, but it does depend on what we find and whether we find something compelling enough to want to stay and spend the time doing the drilling. So, yeah.
And I wonder if you might be considering stopping at the Hota outcrop again at all. I think at that time you didn't have the APXS deployed, and you did do a lot of great science there. So is that under consideration at all? Thanks.
It's certainly under consideration, but it's